Today I will be teaching you about ESL in the United States and in Wisconsin. First, we're going to start off with some laws and acts that we're in, and then we're going to talk about how Wisconsin deals with them, and then we're going to look at some graphs. First, we're going to start off with the Bilingual Education Act, and this was federal legislation that provided funding for the school districts to help bilingual education programs. It was signed in 1968, and this was the first federal legislation that looked at the unique needs of students with limited English speaking, and it helped provide or set the stage for further legislation. Next, we have the founding of TESOL, and this is teaching English to speakers of other languages, and it was established in 1966. This was founded around three main issues, one of those being the need for a professional organization that would focus on teaching English to other language speakers and the problems that arose from it. It was designed as a professional organization for teachers of all education levels who had an interest in teaching English to students as a second language. Next, we have California's Proposition 227, and this was the English in Public Schools initiative that was set in place in 1988. This proposition changed the way that limited English proficiency students were taught in California. It eliminated most programs that had multi-year classes for LEP students and required the state government to provide money so that they could help these students. Next, we have the Bilingual Education Act of 1984. During this time, it was a modification of the last bilingual act, and it had schools having to implement how LEP students are taught. Schools were given the right for implementing these programs along with funding as they needed for their student population. So if they had more ESL students, they had some more funding to deal with the programs. Next, we have the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This was enacted in 1965. It was a natural law that focused on commitment to equal opportunity for all students. The act allows state-run programs for schools and school districts to raise academic achievement for the struggling students with disabilities, from learning disabilities, learning difficulties, poverty, and other language barriers. Then we have the history of COBIS, the Council of Bilingual Schools, and this was in Dade County, Florida. And in order to maintain standards that would help serve and supervise the education of children, particularly those of Hispanic origin, they came up with this. It was enacted in 1981, and it was 10 schools in Dade County that formed their original council. This was one of the few public school districts that offered international studies for students. And then we have the Proposition 203, English Language Education for Children in Public Schools. This was passed in November of 2000, and it requires that all public school instruction be in English, and children who are not fluent in English shall be placed in an intensive one-year program to help learn English so that they can be successful in the academic subjects. Then we have the No Child Left Behind Act. This was major legislation that was designed to change the culture of American schools and improve student achievement. Title III provides financial support to institutions based on the number of ESL students, and Wisconsin uses this proficiency standard to measure students' achievement annually and through state assessments also. Then lastly, we have Law versus Nicholas, and this was in California in 1974. It was a court case over Chinese ELL students who were receiving supplemental courses in ELL and those who were not. The students said that they were not being offered the equal opportunity education that was given by the 14th Amendment, and the Supreme Court did rule in favor of these students nationwide, and it expanded the students' rights to be treated equally in schools. Now we're going to talk a little bit about direction of ESL in Wisconsin. ESL is the fastest growing population in public school districts, and in the 2012, Wisconsin instructed about 47,000 students who needed ELL services. And as a teacher is supposed to be focused on the over academic goals over language proficiency, although the language goal is important to ESL students so that they can further their education and career goals. Our next subject is where are the ESL students in Wisconsin from? And the largest population is Spanish, with the second being Hmong, but there are 137 spoken languages by Wisconsin students. And that's about 80, and they're about registered in 80% of the school districts in Wisconsin. Okay. All right, then how Wisconsin deals with ESL students currently. Teachers must first assess the ELL students and see how they do. There's 6 levels, 1 being lowest and 6 being the highest. If you're placed between level 1 and 5, the students are eligible for ESL, but if they place at a 6, they are not. Then it is sent home to the parents, and the parents are informed about this decision, and the parents are allowed to say if they place between a 1 and 5, if they'd like their children to have the ESL program help or not. Then we're going to look at some of these graphs. Over here, this graph right here is showing the ESL students in the United States, and 71% is the Spanish-speaking students, and then we have Chinese with 4%, and then all the rest kind of fall into there. Then we have a map showing the most prevalent states with ESL in it, and it's California, Texas, Florida, and then New York, and then the rest falling behind there. And here shows the percent of the U.S. total population growth, and then the ESL growth, so you can see just how rapidly ESL has been growing in the United States. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you learned something about ESL in the United States and Wisconsin. Thank you.